Okay, so we've got this lovely strawberry to have a go at with some coloured pencils. Well, demonstrating with some coloured pencils tonight just for a change. And so testing out your different colours is quite important. We're going to work as though we are doing watercolours, pretty much leaving all of the white spaces and working in between it as we would do actually if we were doing watercolor pencils as well. So it's exactly the same process, because obviously we need to make sure that all of these lovely light areas are left so that we get that lovely shine. And if we start to pay attention to what's happening on the strawberry here, we've got you know, we start to look so that this strawberry isn't flat, we'll have lots of different tones to introduce. We've got some, obviously this is the whitest, and we've got other like reflections from the shine on the strawberry on the surface, which is fab. So we want to try and create that. But to get that, we've also got to make sure that we get in all of the other dark shadows in there as well, particularly like the really dark values underneath the leaves that are reflecting, or the dark bit of the spoon, and then these in between values. So what we've got to do is decide about what those will be. So let's just have a go at getting that strawberry mapped out. So you can draw it in. If you want to draw it in the colour, you can do that, or you can just go in with pencil. It's entirely up to you, just to kind of get the shape. Now, I'm not going to do mine tiny, even though I'm on A5, I'm going to blow up the size of this strawberry. And the reason for that is it's quite difficult to get around all these tiny seeds if you go really small to start with. So you might want to just enlarge it a little bit so that it makes it much easier for you when you're kind of trying to create these shapes around, and then also to colour in between, shade between these other values as well. So I'm going to go fairly big. You can, you know, if you want to do the usual and divide your page up, you can do that. That makes it easier. Or you can just go in. So I know the spoon is kind of coming this way. Got a general idea of where that's coming. So I'll try and do that a bit deeper. So obviously, if you're using a pencil, then that's fine. But do it lightly. So obviously I'm going to just get a bit darker so you can see it, as always. But yeah, if I was doing this myself, I'd go much lighter. So this pencil disappears. You can rub it out if you want to as well. And then things like the handle, you can just check the angle, see if it's similar. And then go in with the strawberry. So we can, the good thing about this is we can kind of create these sections. So I'm just looking at whereabouts on the paper. So I want this strawberry to come fairly well up. So I've just put a little edge there where this cream is. I want it to come, it is quite wide across there. Then I can pop in this section here at the front. That's much easier to do. Yeah, and then we just kind of, obviously that needs to be a bit longer now, I've just realised. But that's fine. Make it come out a little bit longer. And then, you know, obviously we've got all these interesting shapes that the cream makes over the top here. So, you know, we've got quite a lot of cream in there. Probably this spoon comes all the way out here, but we can't see all of it. And then another bit here. We're just kind of sectioning out making it a bit easier for ourselves. Just popping this cream in. There we go. So yes, we've got a few bits and pieces going on there, haven't we? And then we can, you know, pop more things in as we go. But obviously then we've got thinking about the size of the leaf. So if we've made this bit a bit bigger, then we do need to make sure that our leaves and everything, we're making those a bit bigger as well, so we can see those. And then they have these lovely curves, don't they? So you can just treat each leaf as an individual. Some of them have got a little cup. Well, some of that will be the shading, but then you get like an extra little bit of a lip on it, you know, and we have the difference between lights and darks in there. So we will really get into those tones once we start doing it. So this is like the curl. Just about see the back of the leaf there. And then we have this bit here. Just kind of treat all of these in isolation. And things like these leaves that have got a bend in, you can literally just pop in, you know, just 2 parts of that. A lovely shape of leaves on strawberries. So we're just getting the nuts and bolts in really before we start. And then we can really think about some of these things that we've got in here. But there are some fantastic. So what we'll start to really look at, what we're going to start to really look at is all of the different tones within this strawberry. That's why I've picked this one actually, because obviously we've got the seeds and things like that, the shadows around the seeds when we start to look, and then depending on where the light is on this strawberry, we've got, you know, some kind of pinkish tones, but again you'll see what you see. We've got some really dark tones in there. We've got dark tones around each of the seeds, if you can see that. But then if you start to look at this in sections, we've got like almost some orangey warm colours here that we can blend over the top of this when we're doing this pencil work. And then quite I'd say like a kind of quite a bright reddish colour in here as well, along with all of these reflections. So it's how we kind of piece all that together. So one of the things I will say with the pencils, we do need to like obviously test them out on the paper. The amount of pressure we apply needs to be not too heavy to start with, Because, for example, you know, as we're kind of shading around things, well, you know, we need to kind of decide what we're doing anyway with the colours that we choose. Like you can make circular motions and like it should go on nicely into the grain of the paper if you're using the tip to do the picture. But if you're wanting to layer up and make these colours darker as you go, and sometimes we do with the contrast because we think, oh, that needs to be darker. Well, we can't go lighter, so we always kind of apply it with care. But it may be that you think like where some of these orangey yellow tones are further down, that we actually want to add in some of those tones, and that will work really well as long as we haven't burnished the top of the paper. So when we burnish it, we're applying so much pressure that it gets like a really shiny waxy surface. And then once it's burnished, you've burnished it, you can't get any more colours over the top. So it's just something to keep an eye on. And I suppose the only way of doing it is by actually having a go. You could do it on a tester paper to see where your burnish kind of limit is. So if I can go in really hard a lot and get this really waxy colour now. Right, yeah, it's getting quite shiny, is that? I can't blend any colours over the top now because I've gone so deep. Now that's fine to go deep if you're not going to put any colours over the top. So there might be areas on here that you once you start popping them on, like that was a bit lighter, you might think actually now I'm ready to build up in this area, so now I'm going to go deeper with it. So that's fine. It's just one thing to take care of. So if we go in, so if we have a little look at looking at where we can put, because obviously our light areas really are our seeds, and then we've got these light areas round here as well. So if we build this up by actually getting our seeds into place, that might really help us to decide what the colours are between. So if we have a little look at the patterns, sometimes they kind of come across, don't they, like that, or like that, or like that. So if you just have a little look at or that way, you can the patterns it makes. That helps to kind of like think where am I going to put them. So so what I'm going to do is create the dark patch around the seed to start with, and that will create the seed shape. So I'm going to go in. I'm going in with kind of I suppose the colour it's quite a dark what I'd call a like a scarlety pillar box red, because it's got a bit of a blue tone in, so it would be great for creating that shadow around. And obviously we need to scale up as well, so it's just deciding. You might not know exactly how much it's scaled up. So I'm just going to go in and create, this is this one up here, just start creating this shadow around. Now you can go in quite dark with this if you want to. I'd say that's one of the areas. It doesn't really matter because we're not going to, I'm certainly not going to put anything lighter in there. I'm going to have this nice and dark. So I'm going to start to go in, and I'm not worried about the burnishing of this bit, basically, is what I'm saying, because I'm not going to do anything else in there. And then, you know, if we're looking under here, some of these are much darker even than these, but I'll come back to that. I'm just going to concentrate on the seeds for now. There's something under here, but I'm not quite sure. So I'll just put what I think I can see, which is a couple of marks shade around. It'll look very disjointed as well, by the way, whilst we're doing this. So it'll be one of those, oh God, it looks awful. And trust the process for sure. Because until we kind of get the colours between and together, it just doesn't really take shape, really. Can't see it. So I think like coloured pencils are definitely like, you need to just, you know, have trust in the process, absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to look around this side. What's it going on up here? I can't really see. I can see some kind of a seed. What I'm just going to draw what I can see. So there's any shapes around it. which might not be a lot. It's quite, some of these, even some of these seeds are quite, you know, quite a bit darker under here. So all we can do is a shape around that we can see. Okay, so then I'm going to come to, you know, you can go around in a whatever shape you want to. I'm just going to follow these down a little bit, pop them in. There's a couple more here. So also sometimes you get more shadow at one side of the seed as well. So just kind of a look at that, see what's happening. And if they're not in the exact place, it doesn't really matter, because what we're trying to do is just practice, you know, what we can see really. So just following these round, this kind of pattern. See there, so I'm kind of looking in where these dark patches are going up here. Just copying really. So yeah, so just so again, it's going to look a bit strange because it's a bit disjointed, but just working through this process of creating the seed. You know, you can start to put some of the shape that you see around where this bit is up here as well, if you want to, if that helps, where you can see where the shadow is going to go. Just helps with the pattern sometimes a little bit. Something on the edge there. Looks like it's right on the edge. And what this does is putting the shadow around it will create this, like the shape of the you know, the pitted side of the strawberry. How it goes down. So I'm going down this way now. There's nothing wrong with us even darkening areas a bit more later on, but we can't reverse it. That's the biggest thing with it. And there's obviously much darker here, which I'm going to come back to. Some of these really dark ones, I'll go with the darker shade, but I'm just making sure we've got these seeds in here. keep going. It's really quite enjoyable just looking at all the shapes that you can see in there. I'll just take a bit of concentration. And if you get some unusual shapes, you're starting to see some more unusual shapes around them, then, you know, pop those in as well. I want one to come out a little bit further here. Now, when I'm getting to here, we're starting to see some light areas. And if you want to draw around those light areas as well, so that they stay in, then that's probably a good idea as well. So I'm creating the shape of the pip there, but I'm also making sure I leave this white here. And that's kind of within the shading. So I'm going to now try and create that interesting shape around the whole thing. That's the beauty of the pencil. So remember to keep them nice and sharp if you notice that the tips are going off. Pop them back in. Pop them just in the sharpener. Same here. And again here, where we've got like some definite little shades of white coming in. So I'm going to go around this. Just follow what I can see really on. Get that shadowing around it. And you can literally just copy the shapes that they're making. Here, another one. And then we have almost like a little area of very small area, which is probably yellow actually. Like again, we're just getting those in. Just a process of observation and building it up and building it up. And at the bottom here. I'm just keep looking. So sometimes, you know, when we're looking at sections, like here again, there's another area between the next lot of white there. So I'm going to get that in, that reflection area. To make sure that that's in. And there's a pip at this side of it. Or a seed. So then again, I'm looking underneath there. It's quite a dark area around. Sometimes you don't get them all the way around, depending on, you know, where the light's shining on them. You can see that there's these light areas, and they look really odd when you're drawing them in like that ahead of it, but it'll soon be okay. So just keep looking at observing what you can see. You know, when you start looking, there's quite a few of the, like, even little bits, isn't there, around here where we've got this light reflecting. It takes a lot of patience actually. So you can continue around that area if you want, or you can start again, you know, start on your next row at the top. I'm going to start on the next row at the top. And then here a bit off centre, haven't we? You know, we can always tone, you know, tone them up. It's just making sure we've got everything in. Really, they're a bit offset. That one's a bit rounder. It's interesting how they do also point in little different directions as well. Like even here, we're starting to see just a little on the second one. Yeah, just a hint of that starting, that little gap of white. It's really interesting, isn't it? You can't really see them at first. So yeah, so our odd shapes around the sea. So we've got here another one. Coming out here. Again, we've got some little white bits in the mix. And then when we start to get up to these ones here, we can just, I think I've got an extra seed in there, but never mind. We can then start to get, you know, you can even draw that shape around it if you want. This white, just to make sure you get it in. Draw around that, whatever shape it is. So again, you know, we can then start to look at where these seeds are in the middle of these shapes. Even the seeds have got a slightly different colours as well. I don't think we can see it too much on here. Some shapes there. And there's a lot going on, isn't there, in this section here? Another more light colour in there. Another one there. Okay, we're getting, you know, once we're starting to get these bits and pieces in, it is going to look very, as I said before at the beginning, it's going to look very disjointed for some time. That's okay. Again, down here, anything that's light coloured, I'm leaving, make sure I've got out. Leave that out, some reflection of the cream even, like some very light colours there. And then we've started really to get those bits and pieces in. So, you know, then what we can have a little look at is the different tones and things that are underneath. But I think I'll take a pause there. See how everybody's doing. Right, so just keep going. So we've got these kind of going round these shapes now. So what I would then tend to start to do is start to pop in, you know, some of these other darker shades and work in a little section as well doing that. Looking at this one here and this one down the side, it's much cooler. So you can, you know, if you can pop a red on, or you can even go for another color. There's a purpley there, so I could even go in actually if I wanted to with a red, not burnish it, but then go in with a color that's going to be cooler because it goes into the shadows. So you can see there I've just overlaid two colors, but that might even be a bit too warm, so I'm going to go in with, have a little look what would use a blue or even a brown. So I'm just testing it out on my paper, which is really helpful. So I'm trying to get that dark shadow. So that's a bluey color over the top. You can even go in with like a brownie color if you've got a brownie color. The best thing is just to test out what you have and what gives you the nearest match to the color that you can see there where you get this shadow. So, okay, so that's going a bit too dark. Might be okay for the top actually. So I'm going to do that for the top. So underneath, I'm just going to really concentrate on this shape that we've got. It goes all the way around there. Comes out, and then there's kind of a gap there as well. So I'm just really just copying these shapes that we've got. And I'm going to go in with this much darker tone, this darky bluey colour over the top. These kind of shadows, I'm wanting these to come round a bit actually, on a bit. It's a rounded shape and I've gone the other way. So yeah, so just kind of pop these in. And then again, you know, coming around here. So it's because the more we have a contrast of lights and darks and everything, we'll create. I'm just going to go over my leaf actually there because it's a bit wide. We will create, you know, the shapes that we need just by getting these nice strong contrasts really. So we'll start. So we're just really being mindful of where we're taking it. And actually there are a couple of really dark of these dark shadows around this one's at the top that are slightly darker than the rest. So I'm actually going to go in over with my bluey tone where it's really dark here, just in the area, not the top of this one, but kind of down at the bottom one. And again, going to give us a sense of what's going on here. So we'll move again. There's something. This is where I said I can't really quite tell what's going on here, but there's something. So let's get in there. I'm just creating these lovely shapes. And again, around, and these are quite dark up here at the top. So again, I'm going to go in, because even those seeds are quite dark in this shadowy bit. So I'm going with that. I'm going to look at this area down here and see how I can, what colour I can create that. But I think I'm going to go back to that one. Just testing out all the time. And that one's slightly darker. Some of these are really dark at the bottom, but I'm not going to go quite as dark. So I'll just take that bluey off. Try this other purple. Couldn't try that one. No, it's not quite the right colour. I'm going with a, could even be a bit of a browny colour. But yeah, I mean, this is why it's good, isn't it? We just leaves it up to our imagination, really, to what it actually, what that colour is that you want to try. So I'm going to go in with this. So same as we've done there, I'm just going to darken some of that now with this other colour over the top. So this is why it was important not to go in, you know, like if you wanted to make it some of it darker, not to go in too heavy-handed with it to start with. This one, that's okay. So I'm going to go in a little bit, darken some of these areas off here, because then the contrast we'll get from the other ones going over will create some of the shape. Easy. So I'm continuing over the top, really, I suppose. Got a little area and over the top of this side, which is where I can see it getting darker. Around the top of this one. And then we're just following it down, really. Over the top here. Just look like the patterns all around it. And then we get that in itself starts to give us some different shapes here. Going in. So yes, we just keeping, so obviously I still need to go in with some of these darker colours over the top. I'm not ready, so I'm not finished. I'm just going around carefully now. I'm just deciding what colour. And go where it's very dark at the bottom and make that very dark. And I'm just blending it, I suppose, a bit more carefully at the edges. Here. We can still, you know, and if we don't make these edges too dark, we can blend across with the other pencil as well to bring that in a bit. I am looking at where the very darkest are, and I want to make sure that is very darkest. So where we get this kind of darker area going around here. You can start to kind of lean in on it. And it'll feel quite dark, this bit, because the other isn't. But it'll make a lot more sense once we get the other colours next to it. So just nice and softly, kind of getting some of this colour in here. Where these darker colours are here. Hey. Right, so we're starting in there to kind of get some of these in. So if you wanted to do like focus a little bit more on this area, then you could go in with like some of those pippy colours. So the difference is like some of these over here are quite bright and some of these, so it's finding the colour that you want to use, you know. And again, you can burnish by going over the top with another colour. If the pips are a bit two-toned, it's just kind of take notice of what's going on there. So I'm going to go in and get a couple of these pips in. Because I can go around them and darken them as well. Oh dear, I've got some sunshine in there. So this is obviously a very dark area, but what we can do then is have a little, you know, where you've been, if there's any other bits that need just, might just be right on the inside of that colour. You might need to go and pop, you know, if there's any darker areas you can see, or you want to just make the shape slightly different, you can go in a little bit here with this darker shade. And likewise, if you can see any slight tinge of like a reddy colour or a different red coming in that's slightly warmer, for example, you can go in with that as well. It might only be in certain sections, like maybe on the edge of here. Might get some of that in there. And then where it kind of comes in here. So just have a little look at that, where it starts to, where the colour just starts to go in a little on the edge there. And then the same at the top, so you pop those clips in as well. Kind of like just pop anything that needs, again, there might be the odd bit that shines a bit of a, you know, a different red that you want to pop in there as well. It might not, it might be very dark like this. It might just be the odd bit of a slightly different colour red that you want to kind of pop in there. So don't be frightened of doing that. Below these pips here, and this one obviously is really toned down. So I'm just gonna go in with a slight different colour there. I'm not gonna have that popping out quite as much. Some of these in here you can hardly see, you can just get a sense that they're there, whereas these coming out are a bit brighter. So it's thinking about what colour, and if you haven't got the one that you're happy with, just overlay a couple. And again, even with the seeds now, you know, we're looking in kind of even a bit more detail. Is there anything that you want to pop in there that you haven't got in? Yeah. Now's the time to do that. Okay. So then we've got, obviously we're coming over here, we've then start to got this shape, which is lighter here. So again, it's thinking about how we pop, what this colour is. So you can either go in like with a different colour you can see, you know, is it a pinky colour that you can see, etc. Do you want to just go in with something like that, or is it an orangey pink? What is it? Or do you want to try to layering up your two tones of red? So do you want to go in a bit lighter with a red and then trying a cream colour or a white over the top of it and seeing if that gives you the tone? I'm actually going to do that. So I'm going to go in with this red just because I've tried it out really and I'm not happy with that. So again, it's looking very disjointed. Don't worry. It is going to look disjointed. It's only until we get all those bits lined up and all the things on. So we're just creating that. And if you want to soften the edge, just like kind of make circular motions around the edge so it's slightly softer, but you still get that shape. A little bit of a lighter colour there. And I'm going to pop that in now with my yellow one, or it might be a bit pink. So I'm just going to, I'll just go around it and leave that leave that little bit of whiter area there that I can see. And then we're coming it through, aren't we, with these other colours here. So it's like a process, isn't it? Like anything else, of building up what we can see. Now that needs to go up a bit. And then we've got these colours coming down here. And then I'm just going to go over. Just need to call this a little bit more. Well, there's some kind of more highlighted bits in there. And just go over the top. And create this pink colour. With my white. Actually, I don't think it's slightly off like this one. Again, it's not really looking much, but we're just still popping on some of those other colours. So I missed out these. These are a bit yellowy, orangey around this side. There's a hint that they're there, but we don't really know what it is. And then again, you know, take a step back from it, have a little look, and is there anything else that you need to add? So I've noticed here I do need to add a bit more of a shadow over here. And then I'm going to pop in, there's another few bits of shade that I haven't managed to get in, and I'm going to pop that in here. We can do that, you know, it's the other way around. It's difficult to go with light to dark or dark, you know, rather than dark to light we can do, sorry, light to dark we can do that one. So I'm just going to close the gap on some of these, around these seeds. Okay. And again, when we get things like leaves in, it will make a little bit more sense to us as well. So that's one area. So obviously, just having a little look at, you know, the other kinds of colours we've got in here. We've got this dark, a lot of this in between is quite bright red, and then we've got this very yellowy colour in between all of our light bits there. So it's thinking about, you know, how we're going to pop those in as well. And then also how we're going to create, you know, the shadow of where this leaf comes as well. Just popping that shadow in around underneath, actually, underneath the strawberry. Oh. So I am just going to pop a bit of colour back in here. It's quite light, just around some of the areas. Sometimes it just gives it a bit of a lift. In places, not too much, because it is quite peachy, quite light. Okay. So we've got, you know, we're placing our shadow in place here, which we've got. We'll make that seed smaller. This one you can only just see around the outside of it. With these decisions we're making all the time about how you know, week to make them, etc. Right, so I'm going to have a little look at what I can pop in around, you know, particularly as we're going around this side here, with some of these seeds and some of the colours in there. So I'm looking at, I'm trying to find a red that's a bit, I'm going to say kind of more orangey over here. I'm going to go in with a different red. It's a bit warmer. I'll start to get some of this red colour in here. And then just carefully, like we've been doing, you know, going around it. So again, don't be frightened of using the tip of your the tip of your pencil. Get some of these in, and then keep sharpening them as well. And we can blend, you know, blend in a little bit. even though we've got this shadow. So no, all around this section, there's only a small amount of white in there. So I'm going to start to just go around, just blend it. If you do have any light ones, you know, like that here, you just go around it. If you start to get to the point where you think, yeah, I'm okay going in a bit darker, then by all means, you know, pop a bit more pressure on if you don't want to go overlay with any colours or anything. Fine. Yeah, there's a light area now. We're just paying attention to what we can see. So again, just going around these areas where there's light bits that we left earlier. Keep going. Avoiding the areas you want to keep light. Which we drew out, didn't we, earlier, which is really helpful. And we can just carefully go between them. And just remember to leave those. So as we're working our way up as well, what we can be looking at is, you know, when does it start to change? When does it get a bit more yellowy and that kind of a thing. So again, you know, when you're happy with the colour and the tone, You can darken that off if that helps. And make it a colour pop. Just blending it a little bit more here. And I'm also going to blend in this a little bit more as well, so that's a bit more of a soft edge, because I've got it quite hard there. So, yeah. And we're just continuing on with these colours that we can see, leaving some of these bright bits out. And again, at the moment, our seeds are popping a bit, but not massively, but they will once we've got some of those other elements in. And then I'm just going to go this bit here, which looks to me a bit more yellowy. I'm just going to go in a little bit lighter here. In between, and I'm not going to go in with the yellowy colour over the top as well. So we've still got some areas to leave that have got a bit of reflection in them. Whilst I'm doing that, I'm just noting that this is where it turns a little bit yellowy, so I'm going to go in a little bit gently to start with. And then I'm going to overlay her with a, see what colour, orange, that was a good one, an orangey colour. I'm just going to go over where I think it's a bit more, got more of a yellowy hue between it. And again, you know, we can just blend that a little bit. In this area, we would see it. Maybe going with a bit of yellow around here. So I'm going to go in now as well with the seeds. I've gone for a slightly warmer, just ever so slightly warmer. So I'm going to get those seeds in now. Unless there's two tones and you've got some light areas on them. Just kind of looking at what you can see there, really. You know, make them nice and bright. But be careful we don't colour all of those white lines in that we've just earmarked. It's easy done. All right, that's the seed. That's the shadow, that's the seed. Yeah, so they're quite close together. So I may do the reverse here and actually get these seeds in first so that I don't mix up where those light areas are. And then we need to get these seeds maybe to even pop a little bit more around here. So I'm going to go just look now at getting looking at where the shadow really falls now and making those pop a little bit. I just see, because this is where the seeds around some ends don't quite, you know, they're a bit darker. Some of the shadow is a bit darker around the sun. We'll just keep going. It's amazing how it can start to turn at these points where we're getting the finer details on in there. We've already gone in with a darkish colour, but we're just reinforcing with the shadow the shape that we're getting here. And even, you may even start to see a little shadow around the, you know, the areas of white as well, because sometimes there's a shadow between that and the pip. Not always. So we're going to go into this bottom area in a moment, but we'll just take a pause there. Okay, so we're working through now, continuing to kind of think about like this area here. We've got more light in, so it's really kind of balancing this out with the contrast of those darker colours. So I'm going to go back in here. There's obviously some colour to put through, but I'm actually going to go back in and create some of the shape and the shadow around those seeds again. And then we'll be able to see the real contrast of the, you know, the lighter colours as well. Popping out a little bit. So let's have a look. I'm just going to pop in some of these reddy colours as well. So we're just working some of these colours between. So we're just making sure we go around some of these areas of white so that they do pop a little bit there. So we need to almost kind of colour it in between. And make sure we get the depth as well of those seeds in there. it's not popping out, just consider putting some of these shapes in here as well. Now mine aren't quite as bright as I wish they were, I think, because I'm working on cream paper. That's not great. So I might just try and just kind of go in with a little bit of white over the top, see if it lightens it slightly. And if it does, it does. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And if all else fails, we can always go in, you know, with a white pen over the top as well. That's the other thing. And just make that pop over the top. That will be our mixed media. So, you know, obviously we've got like the end of strawberry as well there, and also any kind of shadows that are going on underneath this cream. As well, quite helpful. Almost a bit like a blanket, isn't it, over the top? So it's darker in certain places underneath, but by this spoon basically, isn't it? I think I've got my strawberry a slightly wrong shape, which is why it's supposed to be a bit more. Thinking, what's wrong with this? There it is. Right, so I'm going to get this end here where we've got all sorts of colours weaved, haven't we, in. So we've got some reds, some pinks, you know, whatever you can see, or some lights where the reflection of the in the end is. There's not an awful lot of other tones on there. Maybe some that are a bit pinky. And then I'm just going to pop in like just a little bit of shadow underneath the cream again, which helps us get the shape of that cream coming over the top. There we go. So that's going to help us. I'm just going to pop in the shadow of underneath this spoon, which is really dark. I may even go in with black in here. That kind of gives us a bit of a sense of what's happening with this cream between that here and the spoon as well. And I'll just go in with a much lighter grey or something around here, because we've got this kind of greyness inside the cream. When you really look, there's kind of a bluey grey colour, or whatever anyone else can see, depends on what you can see, that you can tell that this cream is kind of tipping off and it's creating a shadow on either side. It's just a little bit how it's coming underneath the spoon there. And then the same underneath, you know, when we're starting to kind of put this spoon in, we're just looking at all of the different, I know I haven't finished the strawberry. What I'm trying to do is just create a little bit of a sense of what's actually happening around the strawberry. You know, same again, looking at the shadows and the colours and everything that is happening underneath this spoon. I've decided to go in with grey, but you could go in with all sorts of colours, purplies, a bit darker if you want. And then I'll build that up and go in with the really dark. So I'm going to go in again now underneath. And it starts kind of darkening in places, doesn't it? We're just creating a definition between, so under here we can't really see it, we just get a sense that the spoon turns. So we know that all of this inside is very dark space. Again, that creates the shape of the spoon, so it's really helpful to us. And if we make sure that that is dark enough, that helps us with the shape of the outside of the strawberry as well. When we put the top on the strawberry, it will make a difference as well. There we go. And even on here, we've got some of this area is quite a bit darker in here. So I'm just going to go in. There's a bit that's white, but a lot of it's kind of a grey colour. And even as we go further in, it's that sense in there that it's quite dark. So just copying what I can see really on happening on with the shading. Obviously we've got this bit that goes in here. We can pop and make that a bit darker now. And you know, we can create just, not to be a lot, but we'll just kind of create a little bit of a shadow over the top of this green, so we can get a sense of the fact it's coming down. And again, you know, down here as well. Just kind of soften the edge of the cream again. There might be just some little folds almost. I need to rub that line out, which is creating a bit of a, I don't think I've got my rubber with me, so I'll just you know, take out that line to make this edge softer. Yeah, so we know that there's a spoon there, and actually we can tell there is, but it's difficult to see. So what you can do is just kind of create a very small you know, bit of a dint in there, just so that we can tell that that is coming over the edge of the cream. And then really, I'm probably going to go back, just creating this around so we've got some sense of what's happening. Sometimes it gets a bit, there's a lot going on and we can't really see it all. And the same here. So on this handle, it's the same principle. We are just creating the shapes we can see and the colours and the tones. You see that spoon light there. And you can see, you know, half of this is a different colour, the tone is slightly different. And then you can even pop some of those, you know, some of the other tones, the grey tones that you might be able to see in there. Might be a bit darker. I'm going with slightly darker grey for that. So all of these things help us to work out that there's actually a spoon going on. And then we can actually go in and you can even darken some of these shadows so that that spoon really, you know, really pings in certain places. Darken the tones and things like that. So I'm going to go back onto the strawberry leaf. So again, you just need several, I've got many pencils out here, several colours for the leaves. So we need like a limey green, but if you have not got a limey green, you can always use quite a nice light one. So really you just need a contrast between the lights and the darks, whichever you got. You can always add yellows too for these colours. That's a dark one, so that'll be handy. So okay, the problem actually in one bit of this. So this is the same principle. If you want to put the shadows in, if that helps, if you're really enjoying doing those shadows first, then you can. So I know what you know, that really helps to get some of the shapes. So you might want to look at where the shadows are on the leaves, the ones that go inwards. That will make it sink in that place. And then underneath here. We're just following the shapes, and again, you know, where it's really deep dark, we'll pop that in. Where it's lighter, we'll pop that in. But I'm just going to go in. I know we're working light to dark, but as long as we can leave them together, so you can work it. You know, you can put all one tone in at the same time if you want to, or you can pop in some of the other ones. I'm just going to leave a white bit out there. And just popping those in. And keeping going until we are with this here. Dark. Oh, like what's going on here? But I've actually drawn. Oh no, I've realised I've drawn the wrong leaf twice from the same leaf twice. So you see, I make mistakes, plenty of mistakes. So that one is this one here, and I've tried to start this leaf. So never mind, hey. Let's have a little look. It'll have to have a double leaf, though, one that's very similar. We'll try again. So I think that was a bit odd. Couldn't work out where the leaf was coming. So I'm going in there, getting this depth in with the pencil. And that's creating the shape of the outer leaf. And there's a bit around this side. It's dark as well. I'm going to go in even darker into that bit there. It's not quite dark, so I've gone in with a bit of a brown to darken off even more, to get a feeling of depth in that section here. And then pop some of these leaves in. The edge of that one coming over. So I'm going to try and pop that edge in here. It's really light edge on there. And then if we can get in underneath that leaf with the shadow, creating the depth of the gel bit underneath of it, so the top bit should pop up a little bit. Now, and this is the thing again, so our style really does affect the way we do things. So some people who love to blend when they're painting will blend the pencils more, and some of us, and particularly I'm thinking about the way I create things, I like to have quite a linear effect. So my drawing quite often will be like that. So that's something else to think about. So there isn't a right or wrong way of doing these pictures. It really is what feels most, I think, the most natural to you, really. So the styles in these pictures will vary hugely because we all create so differently. So, you know, it's like what I've said before about things coming out of your hand, you know, the way we do things. Sometimes it's just nature's way of the way we actually move our hand in the direction, particularly with drawing, because it's like sketching styles. When I was talking about that, some people will sketch very neatly and other people will sketch quite, you know, it's the same with we're actually drawing with colouring, but our hand, you know, will move in certain directions, and it's the one that's most comfortable for you, really. Is, I'd say, important. So it is a work in progress for sure when you've switched to doing coloured pencils. So yeah, so don't fear is what I meant to say, really. Don't worry. It's not supposed to look in a particular way or anything, so I'm just following this stalk up. There. So again, we like looking at the tones on these leaves, you know. They vary, don't they, quite a lot. So just go with it. Like, so the front one's got a little bit more front one's slightly lighter. We still have like depth between these leaves. There you've got the shadow. And again, I'm just going to go in with those little shadows because they're great at you know, creating those, making those areas of leaves go inwards. Not like this. I want to go in with the lights now, just so I don't ignore them. There. It was light on actually, because I'm starting not to be able. Oh gosh, that's oh. Now that's shining. That's the issue I've got here. So I'll just turn it, knock it down. Very shiny, isn't it? Okay, I've turned it back off again because I don't think it's catching the light too much. Right. So what other little sections do we have in there? And then we've got this part of the leaf here. One coming over the top there. And again, we've got a shadow underneath it. And between here. get this definition underneath. Wherever you have underneath, you tend to get this shadow under it. And that's kind of going down the back way, isn't it, this bit? Put it there. We're just, you know, we're just following the patterns that we can see. There's a few interesting colours here. And then we can go in between, you know, just keep looking at what we can see there. With the tones of leaves that we can see, if they're more greeny, you know, or yellowy. You can even, as I said, you can even pop in some colours, some other tones like yellows into it. And then we've got this one folded over, kind of getting the edge of it, aren't we there? Again, we'll have the shadow underneath this leaf here at the back. Almost looks like it's in a bit too harsh. But if you need a bit more definition because you've got two dark areas, then just go in with a slightly darker colour, which is what I'm going to do there. Got this front one and this one to think about now. It's all folded over this one here. Again, I'm just going to go in between these leaves like that. So let's see what we've got in here. And then we'll end up with our own very own interpretation of the strawberry. What we're not doing, we're not going for hyperrealism. That would take literally days and days and days. We're just going in for a study in pencil and having a think about how that might be. Two very different things. Very important just to get into that nice flow. Get used to using a different medium. Yeah, so you can deepen, you know, you can deepen any areas, or you can put a bit of a fold in it there. And then, you know, I think what I would tend to do is just have a little step back from what you've got. I mean, you could, if you really wanted to get this background shading around here, you can take that and then you kind of shade in around it. It's entirely up to you, or you just leave it as it is. We know it's something in green, don't we? But yeah, I would just go through now and just check. Have you got the, you know, is everything where you want it to be with the dark values? And I'm kind of like, no, because when I look up here, this needs to be darker here. I've got quite a lot of light up there. I'm going to go in. Oops, is that the wrong one here? Hopefully. You know, and just making it, if it needs to just be a little bit more, the only thing I'm not thinking about mine is it just needs to be blended a tad more, and maybe just a tad darker as well, and put down this bottom. And then maybe these transitions here, so I've got quite a harsh line there. So that probably, if I was to do this again, I wouldn't make that transition there quite so hard. See if I can just I think it's probably too late, but it doesn't matter. It's a running curve. So I'm just softening it slightly on these edges. And then I'm looking around here, there's a little bit more, I'd probably just darken. Just darken some of these around here. So what we're looking for is a balance really. If there's anything else you feel you need to put in. It's a chance to do it. Yeah, and just have a little look if there's anything else you want to pop in. Want to make anything a bit sharper, a bit softer. And then there's a chance to do it really. But it's just really nice to have a little chance to do little studying pencils. Like this time I up here. A little bit more depth in this one. So yeah, I mean you would get a slightly different feel if the background was darker. Some of these shadows wouldn't feel quite as dark. So if I went in with a black like this, and you'll see what I mean. Obviously, you need to make sure your pencils are really nice and sharp. But what it would do is balance out the contrast of the very darkest areas on you. And I'm not suggesting you do this to be quite happy with what you've done. It'll just show you that, you know, the dark areas on your strawberry won't feel so dark. It feels dark because I've got a very, very light background. And obviously you can do this, you really should, I suppose, big areas, do it in nice circular motions to make sure you get into the grain of the paper. But I'm demonstrating this quite quickly with that bit. So you can just do a vignette, you can go all the way around, you can just leave it as it is and just give it, but it just creates a whole different look to your strawberry, because we've got some, because it's quite dark, probably because of the background colour and all of that as well, you know, it can darken the look of the strawberry, etc. But it's interesting, that's why I'm doing it really, just so we can see how different that green looks as well. Make it much sharper. I'm rushing this now, just so I can demo it, but no, you can really make that background very nice sharp edges around that cream and around the bottom of it. It must be in one flow. So against the dark background, also whites will feel very bright. If that makes sense. So yeah, really, if I was doing this carefully, I'd be in the grain, you know, just taking a bit more care, creating a sharp, nicer, sharper line around the edge of the spoon, etc. But I thought it'd just be interesting to see how this changes with a dark background, and because really this strawberry is picking up some of this dark background, I suspect, from the photographs. So the contrast between your darks will be not very great. Once you start to pop a darker background on, it will be much less my apologies for the rushiness of this. Just wanted to kind of highlight what I was saying about the contrasts.
Becky, I really have got to go. I am most awfully sorry. It's 1:45.